In this week's motoring news, we go racing where the oil comes from and where the sunshine grows wild. See a track bike turned road star and set yet another unseen world record. All this and more in this week's Drive. Last week we saw the first Formula One cars in Moscow, and although the demo runs were blighted by cold, wet weather, thousands of people turned out to watch the cars scream onto the streets near Red Square. Russia still hopes to host a Formula One Grand Prix, but arrangements collapsed last year.
We are in Moscow to promote Formula One, and personally for me, it's a very interesting experience. I hope one day we will be racing here in a real Formula One competition.
The promotional event took place as Renault has long-term business interests in Russia and is currently building a new car factory in Moscow. The show proved to be hugely popular and reinforces the belief that a Russian Grand Prix would be a success. It wouldn't take place in the Moscow city centre, but at a proposed purpose-built venue just north of the city. Renault emerged as a force to be reckoned with this season, finishing fourth in the constructors' standings, and despite losing technical director Mike Gascoigne to Toyota, are in a position to challenge the big three of Ferrari, Williams and McLaren. Formula One is hugely popular in Moscow, where millions of fans sit glued to their television screens to see the races. Jeff Gordon started race 32 of 36 on pole for the half-mile short-track oval, and Sterling Marlin started his 600th Winston Cup race from 9th. And for about 63 laps, it looked as if it would be a memorable one. But it was to be one of the more forgettable. Marlin was fourth and in one of his better cars, working his way through a tangle of traffic, but was hit in the rear by Ward Burton, bringing out the first of 15 caution flags.
Same spot at the same time.
Rusty Wallace then spun out in a similar accident on lap 138. Touched from behind by Mark Martin, he spun and hit the inside wall. On lap 388, Todd Bodine bounced off the outside wall and hit Dave Blaney. Robbie Gordon trailed just behind and couldn't avoid Bodine, and that caused significant damage to Gordon's front end, leading to the 13th caution flag of the race. He was able to finish the race in 36th place, 27 laps down on the leader. The 14th flag came out when Kurt Busch spun on an oil slick on pit road, and an alert official just pulled a crew member out of harm's way. With some luck, Jeff Gordon was able to avoid the many crashes and led for the last 295 laps of the race. The victory in the caution-filled race was the 63rd win of Gordon's career, but only his second of the season. His previous win also coming at the Martinsville circuit. And Pontiac, winner of 2 of the last 3 championships, has announced it won't return in 2004, leaving Chevrolet as the only General Motors brand. 5 full-time teams currently use Pontiacs, with Ricky Craven providing the marque's only victory this year. In one of the most exciting powerboat races of the season, pilots faced intense heat and choppy conditions in the Singapore F1 Powerboat Grand Prix in front of a crowd of 70,000. In the early stages of the 60-lap marathon around a tight 5-pin circuit, little separated the top 3 drivers, reigning world champion Guido Capellini, American Scott Gilman and Fabio Comparato. After the Malaysian race, officials issued a yellow card to Russian pilot Stanislav Kortsanovsky for dangerous driving. Kortsanovsky is championship leader Guido Capellini's teammate at the Zepter team. The yellow card, his 3rd this season, meant that he was barred from this race. 23-year-old Italian F2 champion Ivan Brigada took his place in Singapore. Brigada started racing when he was 17 and has won 4 of the 5 races this year in the Italian Formula 2 Championship. Before leaving for Singapore, Brigada tested the DAC boat on Lake Como in northern Italy, the home of the Zepter team. Half a lap after Gilman passed Capellini to head the pack, Leith Farrowen made a reckless move to take 3rd place, collided with Comparato's engine, and the Saudi Arabian driver's boat flipped over. The rules say that when yellow flags are waved, the positions on the previous lap to the incident are imposed, and Gilman was dropped back to second. Soon after, Comparato was forced into the pits to repair the damaged engine and rejoined at the back. Gilman waited to reclaim the lead until, with 10 laps remaining, he swept past Capellini to win, with French driver Felipe Desertene in third place. Capellini's stand-in teammate Brigada enjoyed a dream Formula One debut to finish fourth. With 2 races remaining and 40 points still to be won, the gap has closed to just 18 between leader Capellini and Gilman. Francesco Cantando drops down to third overall after finishing sixth in Singapore. We stay on the water, but go halfway around the world to the still waters of Lake Windermere, scene of many speed records. Sir Henry Seagrave set the world mark at 98.76 miles an hour here more than 70 years ago. Now, a former soldier has become the fastest blind man on water after setting a new world mark. Mark Threadgold, a former sergeant in the British Corps of Signals, lost his sight completely after head injuries in an accident in 1999. He's raising funds for St Dunstan's, a charity which helps rehabilitate blind ex-servicemen and women. Mark broke the unsighted record of 73 miles an hour previously held by Britain's Steve Cunningham in a test run, and the next day he improved the mark again in 2 timed runs on the lake. Mark was joined in the cockpit of the 35-foot Blue Ice powerboat by its designer and regular pilot, but was in sole control of the craft during the record attempts. His support crew were ecstatic when they heard the official speed readings. Mark has also set a land speed record driving a car on a runway, but his record was shattered by fellow St Dunstan's member Billy Baxter on a motorcycle, as seen in a recent episode of Drive. Last year, he set an endurance record for the blind driving a rigid inflatable around the Isle of Wight. He set still another world record towing blind water skiing champion Gerald Price. The blind leading the blind was how they described it. Their average speed over the course was 34 miles an hour, and they agreed they'd be back to improve it.
Yeah, today we've actually broken the water speed record for a blind driver again. Did it yesterday, knocked it up from 73 miles an hour to 83 miles an hour, and just this morning we've managed to do a 91.6 miles an hour run. Absolutely fantastic.
So what does it feel like doing the run?
It's great. The sensation of speed, it really isn't there. It's very strange because the boat's so stable. The faster you go, the more stable it becomes. So it's not until you actually ease off at the other end you think, flipping out, you realise just how fast you've been going. But Jeremy, who was obviously giving me directions, was actually telling us the speed from the GPS system. So we had a rough idea as we were running along.
Mark hopes to push the record even closer to the elusive 100-mile-an-hour mark in another attempt, without being able to see even to spray the champagne afterwards. That's awesome. The UAE Desert Challenge, the largest motorsport event in the Middle East, began with a short prologue stage on Palm Island in Dubai. The 5-day event is the final round of the FIA World Cup for cross-country rallies and the FIM motorcycle equivalent. The desert is very different to the snow of former world rally champion Ari Vatanen's native Finland. The Desert Challenge is a useful precursor to the ultramarathon Dakar rally, which starts in France on New Year's Eve. Andrew Caldecott has won the Australian Safari Rally 4 times and became a prominent force after impressive rides in Tunisia and Morocco earlier this year on a privately run KTM. He led the FIM World Championship before the recent Rally of Egypt. Poland's Marek Dabrowski was a late entry on his Team Orlen KTM. The Pole has been a regular competitor on rounds in the cross-country series this year and joined Frenchman Francois Flick as a late entrant. Dabrowski finished 4th overall in Egypt and started the challenge just 2 points behind the leader in the world title. Double Desert Challenge winner Cyril Dupre is the man to beat in the 63 bike field. The Frenchman, who also won here in 2001, leads the title. A strong Middle East contingent was led by last year's runner-up Yaha Al-Haleh in his Chev Tahoe, with Ahmad Sogat, Khalifa Al-Matawi, Marlboro Rally team star Issa Al-Hamrani, and the 1993 Middle East Rally champion Sheikh Hamad bin Eid Al-Thani all taking part. 4 times Dakar winner Ari Vatanen lined up in a high-tech Nissan. His international rally career began in 1976 and he was world champion in 1981. An almost fatal accident in Argentina in '85 failed to slow him down, and he's still a competitive world rally driver, now racing just for fun. The field is one of the strongest in the history of the race, with the 2003 Dakar Rally champion Hiroshi Matsuoka of Japan, Frenchman Stéphane Peterhansel, and Miki Biasion of Italy in a trio of Mitsubishi Pajeros. Portugal's Carlos Sousa was racing for the title against Frenchman Jean-Louis Schlesser. Following a recent FIA court hearing in Paris where Schlesser was disqualified from the results of the Turkish round of the World Cup, Sousa leads the standings with 155 points. Sousa, in a Mitsubishi L200 Straker, needs only 5 points to clinch his maiden title. As winner of the prologue, Japanese amateur rider Mitsuo Koizumi led the first leg of the challenge from Abu Dhabi.
Well done.
He's racing in the event for the 4th time. Juan Roma of Spain was 3rd in the FIM World Cup before the first special stage of this year's challenge. But the day belonged to the defending champion Cyril Dupre on a KTM 660, who was last to go down the ramp. The Frenchman, who won the event in 2001 and 2002, worked his way through the field and completed the 319 kilometres across the Monastir Plateau to the overnight halt at Liwa in 3 hours, 13.5 minutes. He was over 5 minutes ahead of South African Alfie Cox. Italy's Miki Biasion, fastest in the prologue, had a day to forget. His troubles started at the very beginning when he misjudged the ramp and his Pajero fell off it. South African Kenil de Villiers, teammate Ari Vatanen and competing in his first desert challenge, had no such problems as he started in 2nd place. Biasion got stuck in the sand 14 kilometres into the stage and was passed by de Villiers, who took his Nissan pickup into the lead. It was a lead the South African wouldn't relinquish, but the Italian managed to get his car going again and kept out of further trouble to finish the day in 3rd place, 2 minutes behind de Villiers. "30 seconds further back was Belgium's Grégoire de Mévius and co-driver Arnaud Debrun of France in a BMW X5. The defending champion Stéphane Peterhansel, who also won the motorcycle event on a Yamaha in 1996 and 97, drove his Pajero into 4th place, 3 minutes 20 seconds off the pace. Carlos Sousa was 5th, 12 minutes ahead of defending champ Schlesser. Overnight leader Kenil de Villiers and his Nissan teammate Ari Vatanen were both forced out with gearbox troubles early on day 2. With de Villiers out, de Mévius moved into the lead, but it was a position he couldn't keep. The Belgian finished the stage in 4th place and ended the day where he began, in 2nd place overall. Poland's Lukas Komornicki was another driver forced to retire. His Pajero Evolution caught fire 38 kilometres into the stage. The 2nd stage belonged to Peterhansel. He drove his Pajero to win the stage, finishing 12 3/4 minutes ahead of Schlesser, who moved up to 5th overall. Peterhansel claimed the overall lead, 16.5 minutes ahead of de Mévius. He's had a disappointing year, failing to produce a single win, despite dominant showings at several events. He lost the Dakar, the Baja Italy, and the Tunisian round to his teammate Matsuoka when his own car suffered minor failures. Cyril Dupre had a steady stage but was unable to extend his overall lead, finishing 4th on the day and dropping some time. Marek Dabrowski came home 2nd on the stage to go 3rd overall. South African Alfie Cox, 2nd overnight, was attempting to win the event for the first time. He won the stage, coming home 1 minute 25 seconds ahead of Dabrowski. The South African KTM rider's stage win wasn't enough to take the overall lead, but he made up 2 minutes on Dupre. The 3rd section would cover 360 kilometres of Arabian desert sand. Dabrowski finished second in this penultimate stage, the Polish rider closing the gap on second-place Cox to just 1.5 minutes. Dupre kept up the pressure and won the two-wheel stage by over 4 minutes from Dabrowski, with Cox a further 2 minutes back. By the end of the day, the Frenchman had opened up an 11-minute lead overall on the South African. Last year's four-wheeled winner Peter Hansel would get stuck in soft sand on 2 separate occasions for a total of 15 minutes. And after 3 last-moment failures in previous events this year, he was taking nothing for granted. The pair were happy with second place on the stage, so long as they kept the overall lead and the Pajero kept running. The Ford-powered buggy of Jean-Louis Schlesser and Jean-Marie Lequin won the stage. The defending world champion and 5 times winner of this event had to win the event to have any chance of retaining the World Drivers' title. But the Frenchman would need to find a way past Peter Hansel and hope that rival Carlos Souza failed to finish. Souza rolled and lost over 16 minutes, but still lay third overall. Italy's Miki Biasion was forced to retire after rolling his Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution after 30 kilometres. The twice former World Rally champion suffered a broken rib and took the decision to withdraw after the third control point. In the T4 trucks category, all 4 entrants incurred a stage maximum penalty, but the first of 3 Russian KAMAZ teams, led by Ferdus Khabarov, Gennady Bodnar and Zamul Kamalov, had a slender 13-second lead over their teammates, having won all 3 stages of the event. The challenge ended back in Dubai, and Peter Hansel claimed his first victory of the season. The Frenchman finished more than 15 minutes ahead of Schlesser, who announced that he would not chase another title. Carlos Souza finished third, enough to claim the World Championship.
It's a very good victory for me because during 1 year I have no victory. It's the first victory of this year, so it's very good for me and my co-driver, and I'm very happy because the car was perfect, so we are very confident for the next race for the Dakar now.
Peter Hansel's victory for the Mitsubishi team was a major confidence booster for the Frenchman after 3 disappointing races earlier this year. He will now attempt to win the Dakar Rally for the first time in a car in January after 6 wins on a Yamaha. Cyril Dupre won the motorcycle category for the 3rd year in a row to clinch the bikes world title. 16 times Middle East Rally champion Mohammed Ben Sulayem was the chairman of the organising committee. Still in one of the world's hotter places, but to a very different sort of competition now, where not a drop of petrol would be burned by the competitors. 22 cars lined up to prepare for the World Solar Challenge, an event that would take them across Australia from the northern city of Darwin, south through the remote outback to Adelaide, 3,010 kilometres away. Once competitors leave Darwin at 8 a.m. on the first day, they're on their own. Apart from compulsory stops at 7 checkpoints, each team endeavours to travel as far as it can each day, but must make camp by 5 p.m. each evening. This year's race was expected to be the hottest and thus the fastest on record. The hot favourite before the start was the Dutch car Nuna 2, entered by the Nuon Solar team of university students. The Dutch team set the race record of 32 hours and 39 minutes in 2001, but they built a new car said to be capable of 170 kilometres an hour. Other teams tipped to challenge for the lead include the 1999 winner, Melbourne's Aurora 101, American contender Principia College, and Queen's University from Canada. But after a disappointing performance at pre-event time trials when Nuna finished 10th, it promised to be a wide-open race. The Aurora has set 8 world records, including the longest solar car journey, 13,054 kilometres around Australia in 24 days. The car weighs 190 kilograms and can reach speeds of up to 150 kilometres an hour. Early in the race, Nuna 2 had overcome its earlier problems in the trials and quickly overtook the rest of the field. At the Catherine checkpoint, 320 kilometres south of Darwin, Nuna had built up a lead of 2 minutes over the second-place Tesseract, entered by the US Massachusetts Institute of Technology solar vehicle team. A further 7 minutes behind in third place was the Australian favourite Aurora from Melbourne. Aurora had been the fastest car in the pre-event trial and performed well early in the race southwards. On the second day, the Nuon car set a blistering pace through the Australian scrub. Superior aerodynamics and good sunshine helping propel the electric car to speeds of up to 125 kilometres an hour. The 2001 champions covered 3,010 kilometres in 31 hours and 5 minutes, taking an hour and 34 minutes off their previous world record. The driver was clearly tired, but also delighted with his team's achievement.
I feel very excited. I'm very happy. I'm glad we made it to LA this quickly.
It's fantastic. The sweet taste of victory. It's just great. I love it.
Aurora finished second, with the Massachusetts team third. With a hype usually reserved for high-profile launches, Malaysian petroleum company Petronas launched the road-going version of the motorcycle raced under their sponsorship, the Foggy Petronas 1, or FP1. The state-owned oil company entered World Superbike racing in 2002 with recently retired 4-times world champion Carl Fogarty. The bike's engine is a 900cc fuel-injected triple with gear-driven cams and a counterbalancer. It makes 127 horsepower at 10,000 RPM. Three 55mm throttle bodies provide the intake, while a 3-1-3 exhaust exits under the sleek tail.
This bike is unique because, one, it's we built for racing, and then we're converting this bike for road use. Number two, it's unique because we are working with Carl Fogarty, the famous, renowned world champion from Britain. So I think this bike has both machine and man combined as one.
Fogarty says no compromises were made in building the road-legal bike.
It's a beautiful bike, and you know it's come from a race bike, which is unusual. Usually you build a road bike first and a race bike. This has come from for a race bike to go on the road, and it's very special.
The rules of the category require that the bikes on the track are derived from road bikes which are available for sale. A minimum of 150 bikes, called homologation models, must be built. So Fogarty's backers had to launch a road-going version of the 900cc 4-stroke triple. A limited edition of just 100 bikes will be sold to the public.
I think prospects next year are very good. I think we've had a very good year this year, development-wise. I think we've shocked a lot of people, especially the first race, by qualifying on the front row of the grid. That opened everybody's eyes up, and you know, it's been a steady progression throughout the year. We've had our ups and downs, but I think we've done quite well on the whole and finished quite regularly around the top 10. So next year we need to improve on that, and I'm sure we will do.
Technology ownership is key to Petronas, and we see that we are oil and gas company, and getting into automotive racing, get connected with fuel and lubrication, all is one business. So we think by getting into this motorsport is one way to do it.
In only its second season, the team was fourth in the series, with Australian Troy Corser, himself World Superbike champ in 1996, doing most of the development and the racing. And should you need to know this, the bikes are expected to be sold for about $45,000. So, whether you drive with no hands, way too close, or miles from nowhere, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.